What makes the biggest difference in student success? Research says it's not just individual effort, it's collective teacher efficacy, or the shared belief amongst educators that they have what it takes to help every student thrive. Welcome to the Efficacious Educator Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind this powerful idea. I'm your host, Sarah Bialek, and in each episode, we speak with teachers and school leaders who tackle big challenges by working together. Discover what it takes to create lasting solutions, build trust, and transform school communities. This is the Efficacious Educator Podcast, building better schools, one collective solution at a time. Let's get started. Our efficacious educators today are Chris Conant, Jim Brasile, and Meg Shea, who all work at New Britain High School in New Britain, Connecticut. New Britain is a large, comprehensive high school serving just under 2,400 students, grades 9 through 12. 20% of the students speak English as a second language. Just under 23% receive special education services, and 70% qualify for free and reduced lunch. The three largest racial groups are Latino at 65%, white at 16%, and African American at 11%. Chris, our first efficacious educator, started at New Britain High School as a science teacher in 2016 and has since transitioned to the Career and Technical Education Department. In the CTE department, he is currently supporting students interested in both college and career pathways, leading to the expansive world of construction, including the skilled trades, construction management, architecture, and manufacturing. Meg Shea has served as an associate principal at New Britain High School since 2017. Her journey in education began in 1992 as a middle school art teacher in New Britain schools before transitioning to New Britain High School's art department in 2008. Jim Brasile is a graduate of New Britain High School, the class of 2000, and has been an associate principal there since 2017. He previously taught English at New Britain starting in 2004. Our discussion today is going to focus on a project these three were a part of in 2018 that leveraged the power of collective efficacy to solve a school climate problem around the school's hallways, which, to quote a member of the team, felt out of control. Full disclosure, a colleague of mine, Michelle Tissier, and I supported the school with these climate and culture initiatives over the course of 3 years, working for the nonprofit Engaging Schools, which sadly has sunset after 43 years of service. Welcome, Meg, Jim, and Chris, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
Sarah.
I'm going to have us start by each of you telling us a little bit about your background in education and the journey that led you to teach at New Britain High School, and what are the reasons you chose this career in education? And Chris, let's start with you.
All right. I started my teaching career as a student teacher at New Britain High School in 2010. And then I got my first job in a neighboring school district, Southington, Connecticut, which is a lot different than New Britain in the demographics. And it's more of a, I guess, affluent town, and a lot less issues with special education demands and, I guess, the diverse nature of our school we're in now. After 5 years, I came back to New Britain when an earth science position opened up, and I taught that for, I think, 6 or 7 years, and then 4 years ago made my way into the tech ed department. So I'm teaching construction and CAD and woodworking, and that's where I'm at today. I think I decided when I was in high school, it was a combination of really good teachers I had, and then teachers I thought weren't doing the best, or weren't, I guess it was easy to judge at the time being so young, but maybe weren't doing enough to connect with me as a sort of a energetic, kind of tricky to manage student back in my day. So I thought I'd be good at that part of the job and help out students that I could relate to.
Jim, how about you?
Well, I will say, first of all, Chris was right. He is very good at managing those type of kids and lots of types of kids. So
Thank you.
Nice job. We're happy that he picked a career in New Britain for sure. So I started my educational career. I grew up in New Britain, Connecticut, went to high school here at the high school where I currently work. And when I went off to college, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do, but I knew I loved English. I loved literature and working with people most of all. So when it came time to pick a major, I was like, English education kind of makes sense. I also had two parents who were educators. And so I didn't know a whole lot of other jobs, but this one seemed like a good path. I love teaching in New Britain as an English teacher, and I wanted to figure out more ways to help out the school, give back to my community. And it's been, whatever it is, 7 or 8 years since I started as an administrator now. And I love that part of it too. Although I miss some of the personal connections I had in the classroom with students, it's a little more difficult to make those connections as an administrator. The positive side, though, is being able to connect with all the staff members who I didn't get to know as a teacher. So that's been really nice.
Meg, how about you?
So I got my start in New Britain about 32 years ago. I'm the eldest of this group, but I got into education similar to Chris, I think, because of teachers that I had that maybe didn't quite understand me and my learning style, but I was always very much into art, and art is really what kind of kept me in school. And I became an art teacher and started teaching in New Britain at a middle school and stayed at the middle school for quite some time, and then transferred over to New Britain High, where I started teaching some AP art class that we did not have at the time. Continued on my journey and crossed over into administration, and now I get to work with really incredible teachers like Chris in the CTE department and other teachers who are in the fine arts department. I really am passionate about hands-on learning and helping kids explore with their hands and their minds and their hearts.
Jim, what is some of the work you've done that you're most proud of in New Britain, at New Britain High School?
So, I mean, the real prideful thing is when you know, as an AP, seeing that student who came in freshman year with all kinds of troubles and then seeing them cross the stage 4 years later. And like, you know, when a parent you've called so many times because for good things and bad things and support reasons and disciplinary reasons, and then you get them there, like that's really where the pride in the work comes in. I think more individual where I'm prideful is some of the projects that I do on my own or in collaboration with the other administrators and teachers, is like doing the schedule. I do the scheduling for the building, which is a really big project. And we've changed in the last couple of years. It's been stable, but before that, it was like a new schedule every year from when I started. And so I've been proud to say that the schedule has run, not necessarily super well, but I feel like I'm getting my 2% better every year. So in 50 years, it'll be perfect.
There you go. You can't leave now.
No.
How about you, Meg?
Jim is very modest. He's a master's schedule. The way his brain thinks is it's amazing. I'm envious of that. But I would say similar to Jim, I mean, being in the district for as long as I have, I am really proud of the relationships that I've created with families. And I'm at the point in my career where I've had, you know, if I have a student now, chances are I've taught their parents, or I've had some occasions where I've taught their parents. So that makes me really happy, because so many times, you know, I think in our jobs, we don't see the end results. So when I'm sitting with a mother and a father who I taught in middle school and now they have a child, it just brings it full circle for me. And, you know, they generally remember me in a positive way as my role as a art teacher. So that's good. That really for me is big. And also just the collaboration, I think, with the APs. Each one of us has a cohort that we follow. So we're able, different, I think, than other high schools. We're really vested in that cohort, and we can, you know, collaborate with each other. And that makes our jobs unique. And I just think it's important.
So just to clarify, you start with the ninth graders and you follow those ninth graders to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade as a team.
That's correct.
Yes. And beyond sometimes.
And beyond sometimes.
We meet weekly as a cohort team. So myself, our deans, the social worker that's, you know, paired with the cohort, and we're able to discuss students that, for various reasons, whether it's behaviors, academics, and really target them and progress monitor them.
Yeah. So you're really using that. Kids so well, you can follow them on their trajectory the whole way through high school through your MTSS system where you're doing kid talk protocols and following along with them. Okay.
Which engaging schools helped us with then too.
Chris, how about you? What are some highlights or things you're proud of in your work?
Well, I agree with one of the highlights is that now that I transitioned from science to now I'm in tech ed, is that I do get students in each class that are either 9 through 12 or 10 through 12. So you get a mixture. And I do have 3 different classes. So I have been able to teach the same students 3 years in a row now, and then also to see them graduate. So probably my biggest role, or the biggest thing I've changed in the last few years, is now I see myself more of a liaison to students getting into careers out of high school. Science, I was kind of just there. Maybe if you like science, then go to college and study it. But it wasn't really a real direct path or a real clear path for my students. So now with the help of community members and businesses in the area, we're able to get a lot of guest speakers to come in and talk to students and kind of educate them on different jobs and career opportunities that you either do or don't need a college degree to get to. So one of the biggest successes is 2.5 years ago when I had a student graduate and he started his carpentry apprenticeship. He's been back every year twice to my classes to talk to the students and give a progress update and tell them how well he's doing, how hard it is, and how much he enjoys the hard work and the payoff that he gets to see. And then we had a woman who runs, Marcy Addy is the name of the woman who runs the Construction Education Center in here, which pairs with a student who gets a 4-year apprenticeship in a skills trade. She came in a couple months ago, and then I have a student now who just sat down and had a meeting with her because he's going to be applying to join that school in a few months when he graduates. So
wow.
I just love it. Yeah, I love that I could help students get some connections because a lot of them graduate without knowing anybody besides their family and their teachers. So now I'm getting them FaceTime with people who are actually going to be able to help them in their life after high school.
So you're helping them build a network beyond high school.
Yes, I like that, a network.
Yeah. All right. So, Jim, could you tell us a little bit more about New Britain High School and the students you serve?
Sure. So I think you kind of alluded to, we have a really diverse community in New Britain, and there is a good amount of poverty in the city as well. It's changed. So going back to both my grandfathers came to New Britain from Italy back in whenever it was, the 20s, 30s. It was a big industrial town. There were tons of places that were building tools. Stanley Works originated in New Britain is the probably most well-known. And so it was a different time back then too. So in the 50s, my dad grew up, he had 2 siblings. One parent had to work in a factory with a high school diploma, or probably not even a high school diploma at the time, and was able to provide for his family of 5. And we know that not only has our community changed a little bit, it's still made up of a good number of immigrants in New Britain. We have a big Polish population who's been a steady immigrant population for the last several decades. But we know the world has changed, and there's no more providing for a family of 5 off of, one salary in a factory. So one of the great things about New Britain High, what we're doing is we have all these great families from around the world and around the town. And some are families like mine that go back a couple generations in New Britain, and some are brand new to the country, but they all have different things to offer. And it's really nice. And one of the nice things from my vantage point as an AP is being able to meet the different families and seeing what they can all do. And then one of the great things that New Britain has done with those families and the opportunities is create what Chris and Meg are doing in the CTE department. Lots of other opportunities besides, we have a lot more tracks besides going off to a 4-year college. There's really opportunities for everybody at the high school. So I don't know if I even came close to answering the question, but that's what I wanted to say about it.
Meg, is there anything you would add about the students at New Britain High School?
Just that I think, each of us learn every day from our students, and they come to school and many of them are facing some incredible obstacles that, did not exist when I was in school. So I think they inspire me just to be a better person by showing up every day. When you hear some of the things that the challenges they're faced with, having to work when you're in high school to help your family support your siblings, that's a pretty big deal. So I just, I'm inspired by them, and, they're unique in their own ways, each one of them. So that's what I would say about the students that maybe Jim didn't touch upon.
Chris?
Yeah, same thing with what Meg is saying. And I don't remember if this is an official record, but I feel like New Britain is one of the most diverse schools in the state, if not even the surrounding cities, in terms of how many countries and languages are represented in the school. So same thing with what Meg was saying. They have so many different types of students and from all over the world. And it's amazing coming from a different type of town. I think you have the most extremes in every direction in terms of success and struggle. In a single class, you could have a student who is homeless and struggling really bad to get by. And then you could have someone who's, about to get a full scholarship to college for academics and the successes they've had. So it is very difficult to manage groups that are so diverse, but it also is so interesting and so rewarding to learn from.
What are some of the countries students are from? Like, are there?
Yemen,
Saudi
all over the Middle East.
Arabia.
Yep.
Okay. So
Jamaica, Puerto Rico. Well, Puerto Rico's U.S., but still all the islands. Dominican Republic, Peru. I had students from. So
we have a
those
lot
are
of
big
students
ones.
coming. Oh, sorry, Jim, from the Ukraine.
okay. You are a little international hub.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And Sarah, I think our student population is now over 2,500.
Oh, over 2,500. Okay, I had
Yes,
an old
it's
record.
grown.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
It's grown quite a bit. And I'll give a shout out to our world language department because they do a ton with, first of all, connecting these kids who speak languages that maybe one person in the school speaks that language, no other adults, and they figure out ways to get them connected. And, every time we get 20 kids who speak a language, then we can hire a language support person. So we've recently hired language support for Ukrainian, but there's others that only have 2 or 3 kids speaking some kind of very small languages that we're not aware of. And they also do a really nice job of working with those kids and getting them certified through Apple testing that they're like officially bilingual and they can put that on their diploma. And they do a nice job of kind of carrying that through and using that piece as a strength for them.
all right. Well, I'm going to turn us now to the problem that's so long ago we started working on. So Meg, one reason I feel so lucky to have you all on the show is selfishly, you were some of the best partners we had on our journey working with so many schools. It was really just your learning stance and your follow through as a team. You were just, we're going to do whatever it takes to do the right thing for these kids. So you really took the research and practices we offered and made it work in the context of New Britain High School, which we had no expertise in. You were the experts in that way. Could you describe the problem you were trying to solve when we pulled a team together for 4 days prior to school in the summer of 2018? I think it was in August. Meg, well, let's start with you.
So I believe what we were starting to see and hear is that students coming into the building in the morning really didn't have a place to go, and that they were somewhat kind of wandering, for lack of a better word, in the hallways. They would come in and immediately, kind of just congregate and socialize as teenagers do. But there was stress as a result of that because there were teachers who were starting their day trying to set up their classrooms. And it was just creating some stress in the morning time for everyone, really. So that was the problem.
And there are, just for context for people who don't know New Britain High School, this team came together and counted 510 exterior doors around the entirety of New Britain High School. And essentially kids could just come, and some of them came really early. So Chris, you want to talk about that from the perspective of a teacher?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like Meg was saying, there was no place for the students to be. I mean, literally they could be everywhere. So without pulling any punches, it was absolute madness. This is back when I was teaching science. I would get here at 6:15, so an hour and 15 minutes before the actual first bell rings where the students go to class. And there would be times I'd be sitting in my room, it's still dark outside, and I'd have students running down the hallway or screaming. The nice ones would come and just sit in the classroom and kind of hang out, which was fine. But you never knew what you were going to get. And as a teacher, to come into school, to spend that hour before your school day getting ready and having no idea if it was going to be a quiet morning or just you would have to go out and handle these situations. And not only that, it was well outside of your, contractual obligations. So technically you're working before you're even on the clock. And that part from a teacher standpoint was just so challenging to deal with. And then from a student perspective, there were students that were literally hiding in the stairwells because there was no official adult supervision. And, they could have a conflict with another student who was looking for them to argue or to start a fight. And they would be just hiding in any corner of the building they can get while other students were kind of trying to track them down. And so there were fights before school. I mean, it wasn't all fighting, but it was just nobody had a place that they could go to feel comfortable and supervised and safe from a student standpoint, and some teachers as well. So,
yeah. Jim, anything you would add to the statement of the problem?
They summed it up really well. I will say I was one of the kids, and when I was in high school, my mom had to teach her own high school, so she dropped me off between 6:30 and 6:45 every day, and I just find a spot in the hallway and read my book. Because I was a book reading kid, but there was other stuff going on too. But it was awkward to just
It's okay to say nerd nowadays.
Oh, that's right.
Okay term.
Yeah. Thank you
You're welcome
for creating space for me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So yeah, I'd be there. It was an awkward time, but it definitely was an issue. And in hindsight of the things and the times when we have students unsupervised that we've closed down on since then, to have that hour or more that we just had unsupervised students at wherever they wanted to in the building. Because the way it would work is, you're absolutely right. We had our 510 doors. The kids would come in through any door that they wanted to, and they'd go and wait in any part of the building. Some teachers would keep their doors locked till 7:20 when their contractual day started. Some would have it open to give the kids a place to sit. So kids would go to other people's first period because they wanted to sit there. But yeah, kids were just wherever they wanted to be.
So, Chris, could you tell us a little bit about the team that came together, that the admin pulled together to develop solutions to this kind of problem of the morning madness that you guys just addressed?
Yeah. So once we identified that was one of the major problems we wanted to work on, the people who were in this team, besides you, we had security staff, security guards represented, admins, deans of students who handle a lot of the discipline. So they were dealing with a lot of this firsthand, and teachers. And it was awesome because a lot of the people that we got to work together for that week in the summer, I think, was people that we didn't typically interact with a lot. So it was eye-opening from a teacher standpoint to hear from deans, because if I wrote a student up for being disruptive, especially in the morning, which was already frustrating enough, sometimes it would be a long time would go by before you would hear if anything happened from it. So at some points in time, different teachers and different staff developed sort of an animosity towards each other, because if you did a write-up and you never heard back from it, you'd think, oh, the dean's not doing their job. But then having to get down and sit with the deans and hear that they got 100 referrals in a single day, and that would add up every day, then you understand, okay, if this has to be more of a team effort. And then I found that going to speak with them or calling them on the phone and giving them a quick heads up about a student, both of us would benefit. And then also the student would get either the intervention or consequence more quickly. So it did develop a better rapport between staff members.
So you had like this really representative group, and it really supported perspective taking, seeing the role that they were taking on and their piece of what they were trying to manage.
Yeah, and I think the reason that the program for morning entry ended up being so successful is because we had everybody involved. Because if teachers sat down, there was no way we'd be able to organize all the different management pieces we had to eventually put in place to actually have it run. So, and I don't think they would have been able to, come up with the same plan if teacher perspective wasn't involved from what they're seeing in the halls and all that. So,
anything that you would add, Jim, to what Chris is saying about the team?
No, I wasn't involved in the team, so they know far better than I do.
Okay.
I wasn't involved till after you
Well,
guys
yeah,
came
that's
up with
right,
the plans.
because you were working on the schedule.
I was probably doing the schedule. Yeah. It's my summer job.
All right, Meg, how about you? What do you remember?
I think, Chris captured it beautifully. Just the opportunity to hear other people's perspectives because, as Chris was talking about how he was feeling in his classroom, it just brought that all back for me. Like in the morning, you come in and you want to start your day. So I think for everybody to really come together and talk about, where their heads were at, and do it in the summer when it's a more relaxed atmosphere is also important. So the stress, again, that word stress, but, people are more relaxed. And I think, their brains are more apt to take in information and be open. I think people really, like you said, Sarah, wanted to solve a problem. And, it was important.
Meg, what were the things that the team came up with to manage morning entry?
One thing that we talked about is that it was important for anyone to, when they start their day, just to be greeted, right? So one of the things as a result of, this morning entry, which evolved, was definitely greeting students, just a deep commitment to talk to students and greet them. And for some of us, I know that may seem like an obvious, but I think so many times you get caught up in what is next in your schedule that something that's so obvious to be in the moment and just greet kids and saying, hey, how are you, really did help that shift. We identified actually 3 different places or 2 different places where students would actually enter that building. And it did take, the campus safety officers and working with operations to really pinpoint those doors that students were going to come in, that it wasn't the 500 doors or the stairwells that kids had access to, as Chris said, that they would enter through these locations. Jim can speak to the scanning piece of it. But once we pinpointed those entry points, everything just seemed to kind of fall in place after that. And then we designated 3 different areas once the students entered the building where they would go. So one being the gym, the cafeteria, and also the media center.
Yeah. So just like Jim, he wanted to read when he came. So you identified kids need to come early because that's the population you serve. And you identified 3 main spaces, the media center, the cafe, because kids do get breakfast there and they can and eat. And then it's in a place that's tidy and well taken care of. And then there was also the basketball courts, giving kids something,
The gym, yep.
something to do in the mornings. So single point of entry and 3 spaces that were appropriate for them to be with adult supervision. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
All right. Chris, how did you guys land on those 3 spaces?
So it needed to be a big enough place for a couple thousand students to be spread out. So the gym is nice because they can walk around, and they even have basketballs and stuff for them so they can get a little energy out. And that holds a lot of students. And then the library media center is large, and so is the CAF. So I think it came down to space that was large enough, but also easily supervised by, staff members because it's so early in the morning.
So kids, I did a little bit of walking around and interviewing some kids. Kids really did report, like, I feel so safe in the morning. Like I have a place to be. Like if I have homework, I can go to the media center if I just want to read. If you have a lot of really social kids who want to hang out and be loud, and the gym kind of provides that for them. And the CAF as well. What would you add about that intervention, Dem?
I just want to say that I remember first hearing about it, and I didn't think it was a bad idea, but I was actually against it. I thought that it was going to be another place. It was going to add more time in our day when we'd be fighting kids to go in the particular direction, because we do have, it's in a school of 2,500, it's a small percentage, but a small percentage in 2,500 is a big number of kids who, when you tell them, hey, everybody's got to be in the CAF right now, they don't want to be in the CAF. They want to be somewhere else. So I thought it was just, instead of starting at 7:20, starting to tell kids where to go and having them tell us no, it was going to be another 45 minutes of it. But I will be the first one to say that it's one of the best initiatives we've done in the last however many years it's been since. And honestly, I don't know of one kid who's outright refused to just go to one of the three locations. It seems like they just kind of take it, especially now that we don't have any kids who do it the old way, and who used to do it the old way. Everybody just is like, well, that's the place I go in the morning. And then after that, maybe they decide that they're going to go somewhere where they're not supposed to be. But that morning piece has really not been an issue that I've seen ever. And I stand in the CAF every morning since 2018, having the kids come in and seeing them in there. And it is overall really pleasant and just, clean, well-lit space, like you said.
So what would you attribute, what did the team do? And I'll open this up to anybody. What did the team do to transition to this, to a culture? This is the way we do things here. We come in any door. I let my friends in any door, and we just roam the hallways. That was the way you did things. And now you're switching to, this is the way we do things. You have three choices. How did you really get kids to do it? And how did you get faculty to do it, even if you had some skeptics like Jim?
I might need a refresher, Meg. Did we have video morning announcements at the time? So we did?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So I think that was one of the main avenues of disseminating the new procedure to students, which is what we still use for big policy changes and stuff. And then staff were trained, I'm pretty sure, at faculty meetings leading up, especially the first couple of days before school started. But I'm glad Jim said that, because I actually didn't think about it from that perspective. And I had no idea that anybody was sort of against it, because I think because it became such a win and so popular so quickly that at least everybody I was talking to, their mind changed so quickly. It was just so much more uniform.
Because it really set the tone for the rest of the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's your morning. And as you said, Chris, so much of if you're coming in at 6:15, and it could set your tone as a teacher or a student.
Oh, yeah.
So you would see an immediate shift in that culture. But I do remember one thing. I mean, I think we did have more money back then where we could have more staff. Now it's kind of, we pay people in the morning to do that, but it seemed like back then, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like we had more staff in the morning involved.
I'm not sure if there were more, because I know I was the only person in the CAF for several years. And so there may have been more on the actual entry doors, but I don't think there were too many more. I would say if there is a drawback, it's that it's not a part of our regular set piece. We do have to pay extra earnings every day it's well worth it for sure, but it's something extra to pay.
It's kind of a service to the kids that need the extra support in the mornings, because they are getting dropped off because their parents go to work super early and they need a place to be, and that's their only ride.
I do think I remember too, I know I was, and everybody on the team with us were so excited to get it started. I think that we all showed up those first couple of weeks anyway, just to kind of monitor the process. And then my staff and teachers around me who were nearby were like, oh, I'll come down. So I think maybe it did feel more supported from the faculty. And I don't think it was a paid position back then. I think it's evolved into that. If I'm not mistaken, Meg,
I think
I
you're
don't
right.
remember.
Sorry,
I think it
Chris.
was fully admin and dean and security supported at first. And now we do have some teachers at different entry points to help the process.
I think you might be right about that, because I remember it being me and the CAF, Carrie Lynn right down the stairs, and there were not a lot of other people. I think it has the benefit of extra people welcoming the kids, getting them to go the right direction, that we do that now.
I'm going to go to Chris next. While you were trying to implement these strategies, what were the biggest successes from the perspective of teaching staff?
Okay, so when it's right off the bat, when it first started?
When it rolled out, yeah.
Okay, I mean, almost immediate happiness, almost elation, I think. And I think that was most staff, because I think Meg mentioned earlier, just the tone of your day was more guaranteed. If you wanted to come in early and have quiet and time to set up your classroom, almost immediately it was guaranteed. And I don't remember for sure, because it was 6 years ago now, but I don't think that there were too many students, and I'm sure it happened, but trying to kind of sneak out and do their own thing, because as it changed, there was only a student or two in the hall. So if they were there before the first bell rang, I mean, you could be on them and immediately send them back to one of the places that they're supposed to be. So I know that it was hugely successful, and it's so satisfying to have been a part of it. And to, over the years, I've been on a lot of different committees to try to enact kind of climate changes to schools. And that one was so immediate and so beneficial right off the bat. And still.
It could be either Jim or Meg, but I'm thinking of the security officers and just their perspective. I don't know if you can represent, or from their point of view, the impact it had for them starting their day in the morning, or admin or deans. Those are kind of the other groups that we don't have represented.
That's a good question. Don't know how much it changed. Part of the reason we needed it so much is because we didn't have security to fan out throughout the whole building. So they were in the places where they probably still are, where students are congregating. They do a lot of outside work. A lot of them are outside for the beginning of the school day, and only one or two of them are inside the building. So I think it makes positioning them a little bit easier from like a administration of security standpoint, because if you have somebody in the gym where we have walkie-talkies in the cafeteria, then you could position most of the security outside around the building where they might more be needed at that time.
Remember a quick anecdote, because I do remember I asked one of the security guards when this first happened, and they liked it too for the same reasons Jim mentioned, that there was just less area to cover. Because one of them told me that, previous to making the switch, not all the security gets here at the same time. So there might only be a few that get here at 6 or 6:30, and then do the rest get there at 7 or 7?
I think
Is
you
it
might
a staggered
right.
start?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But either way, he said that, they'd get a call at 6:30 and have to sprint from one end of the building to another because of some, maybe it was a fight or some argument or some students doing something wrong or getting into it with a teacher. And then seconds later, they would get called to the other end. I mean, so they were saying that, from their point, and like a stress, imagine showing up to work and immediately you're sprinting everywhere trying to put fires out. So I do remember one of them said that got a lot better. At least you weren't sprinting as far. I mean, there's still fires to put out, but it wasn't everywhere.
Yeah. So what's sticking? What's still a part of the New Britain culture? This is the way we do things here for morning entry. When you think about today, what's still there? What's still in place?
Well, it's the whole morning entry procedure is really there. It's like, and it's such an automatic thing. I think the only piece that is kind of has to be constantly updated is which teachers are making the extra earnings to work in the morning. But my understanding is they send out the email asking for teachers, and they close it like 10 minutes later, because it's a easy way to start the day, make a couple extra bucks. But otherwise, it's pretty much set in place. Like we adjust when we have a new administrator come in or out. We adjust our positions. Like I said, I moved from one door to the other, like 100 feet, but I've been standing in the same room for all those years since we started it. It's been pretty automatic.
Mastered that 100-foot walk.
Yeah. I will say this. we had no fights in the CAF at morning entry until we hired our new administrator and he started standing with me there. Yeah, but it's only been, in honesty, it's only been maybe one or two since the beginning of the thing all that many years ago.
You still have the single, or maybe it was 2 points of entry where kids swipe in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the same two. I don't remember, and Meg might remember, did we start the actual swipe with the ID badge back then?
I remember that.
You did, because,
okay.
Yeah.
But it was clunky. It was very clunky.
It was, yeah.
It wasn't like it is now. And I remember the first time we were doing that, standing there and watching just all the students that still hadn't scanned in on the first. It was just, you thought, how are we ever going to get these kids in the building? And then with time, I think also technology has improved and it's become much faster.
So kids just still come in, swipe, and they're on their way.
Right.
And what information does that give you that you need from an admin perspective?
So that feeds Power School. That counts for their daily attendance, which is really nice because then it marks what time they walked in. So you could see this kid came in at 7:33, this kid came in at 7:03, whatever it is. And then we also have, if in the occasion that it doesn't work, we have FSLs who will scan the attendance. They'll pull the attendance codes for the meeting attendance, which is every period. And if a teacher puts in NAB, that stands for not absent. So it's a student who's in their class, but they were marked absent at the beginning of the day. So when FSLs pull their attendance codes, they're able to adjust the daily attendance to be correct too. So it's gotten a lot better because we used to have all kinds of issues with the swipe system, kids not knowing if they were there or not, but it's improved a lot.
So now you have systems and you keep really accurate attendance records as a result.
I would say much more accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd get to the really, but we're getting there.
You're getting there. Incremental improvement. 2% a year, right, Jim?
Yes, exactly.
All right. So some of the leadership moves, I'm going to go, and I am including you in this, Chris, but you had this whole team and you had to make some leadership moves to make a big shift in the collective belief that this could happen, right? That we really had to roll up our sleeves, which I'm thinking through now back to those days. What were the things that you did that really helped champion this or get people on board? What was your role having been a member of this team?
So when we were meeting, we were working on a few different initiatives at the time, I believe, because Hall Scans, we started a version of this right around the same time to help. Because one of our biggest issues, like what Jim mentioned, is we have a daily attendance for showing up to school, but then there's a lot of in-school attendance issues, meaning they swipe in and then they're either not present for their first class because they're somewhere that they shouldn't be, or they're, I guess skipping or something. So that was kind of at this point, I can't even remember what that first version looked like, but I want to say it was teachers just kind of walking through the halls and encouraging students to go to the right place. I don't know if we even had the lecture hall open as that kind of, if you saw a kid enough times, you would bring them down to speak with a dean or an admin. But anyway, that was kind of a side journey. This one was so easy to get staff on board with that it almost took no convincing to get buy-in from staff.
It was low-hanging fruit. They jumped on board as soon as they saw the goodness.
I think if there was anybody who was going to be skeptical, it would have been like me or other maybe deans or somebody else, because it was really a big win for teachers. It was great to have kids not in the halls. And I wasn't hard to convince. As long as you told me what to do, I would do it. So.
So you guys indicated to me that there is a new initiative afoot that just prior to jumping into this podcast, that there's some new things that you're trying to do because you're always incrementally improving climate and culture. So you can just go for it. Whoever wants to tell about that initiative and give us the details.
I'll say it the way Damon said it because he said it really well. We've spent a lot of time with hall scans and with other initiatives really focusing on the 10% of the students who don't want to do the right thing all the time. And sometimes we lose the fact that we've got 90% of 2,500 students who are really trying to do their best. And the biggest complaint we've had from them over the last couple of years is that the bathrooms are unusable because of not so much vandalism, but more that there are so many kids in the bathroom hanging out, using it as a social place, that it is that they can't go to the bathroom when they just want to go to the bathroom and come back to class. And it's also been, if we took it from, security or dean's perspective, it's also where a lot of the trouble starts, because people meet in there because it's the only place without cameras. The students know that. It's a place where no adults are walking in on a regular basis. So what we have tried, and we just started it with semester 2, which started last week, was we consolidated all of our study halls except for the ones that are during the CAF periods. We've consolidated all the study halls so that they only meet in the cafeteria. So that means where we might have had 10 to 20 study halls in different rooms around the building, each staffed by 2 staff members at least, or up to 4 staff members, depending on their duty structure. We now, for each period, have 1 study hall in the cafeteria. And we've also tried to staff 1 small study hall for students who might need a smaller environment. 1 study hall in the cafeteria, which can be staffed by I would say 6 to 10 teachers or more. If we have extras, we just throw as many in there just to make it a better environment. And what that allows us to do is utilize those other teachers who we don't need for study hall to monitor the bathrooms. And so now what we do is every student who wants to go to the bathroom has to have a pass to go to the bathroom. There's a teacher at the door allowing in 2 students at the time, asking the others to wait in a line outside of the bathroom, checking their pass to make sure that it's an appropriate pass for where they're supposed to be, and then allowing them into the bathroom and then to leave. And so it's very early. We're optimistic that it's going to be successful, and that a student who wants to go to the bathroom can go there, wait in hopefully a short line or no line, get in and get out. And there's no need to sort through 30, 40 kids hanging out in the bathroom. Chris, I'm curious how Chris has seen it from his perspective, though. I know it's very early.
I'm sold on the idea, because like Jim said, I've had students say that they've gone to the bathroom, and these are students that I've known for a while and I trust, and they'll come back like 15 or 20 minutes later, which is way out of character for like the students I have in mind. And they're saying that they've gone, so because of this issue where there's 15 or 20 kids, causing issues, hanging out, fighting, vaping, doing these things in a bathroom, you walk in, that's not the kind of place you want to go into a stall or stand at a urinal. So it just makes it completely uncomfortable for most of the students going in. And then because of this issue where bathrooms are either getting vandalized or just overrun, security's had to lock different bathrooms. So a student will leave my room and have to go check 3 or 4 different bathrooms. And this school is gigantic, so all over the place, to find one that's either, without students in it or unlocked. So this just started 4 days ago. So really, we're still in the preliminary phases of seeing it's viable. Right now, the students that I've spoken to, when they're outside, it is annoying for them to have to wait, a few minutes sometimes. But at least there's a staff member there who, we're kind of keeping an eye on the time. If there's 2 or 3 students in there, they know that there's students waiting. So it's kind of putting the onus on them that they're not just going to sit in there. They know there's a teacher's outside, and they know that there's other students waiting. So they're in there, they're quick, they leave, and then the next student goes in. So
the line creates some peer accountability.
That's what I think I'm seeing that, but that's what we're kind of hoping for. Like when they're in the line, they're annoyed, but by the time they get to go in, they know that they're in there now. So they do their thing and they leave. And I hope that, within the next couple of weeks, the students who are using it properly, the speed and the efficiency is there. And then they appreciate that they're not, keeping their fingers crossed and walking into a bathroom, hoping like, okay, what am I about to walk into?
What am I walking into? Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that, the 80 to 90%, like Jim said, are going to be okay with it and making it work.
As Jim mentioned, our students, one thing that they've really talked about over and over again, whether it be through student council or, I have 2 or 3 seniors who are Board of Ed representatives, is it's an ongoing issue. The bathrooms, there's unfortunately, there's vaping that occurs and things that not just in New Britain go on in other parts of the country as well. And students just kept bringing it up over and over and over again. And I think even Jim, maybe you could talk to this because you were a student at New Britain High. I don't think this is a new issue. I think the bathrooms, as you said, there's no cameras. The bathrooms were a place or are a place where they can hang out. So I just feel that this is, it's important. And at least the students now, I think they feel heard. Okay, they've been bringing this up over and over and over again, and finally something's been done. Other schools and other districts can hire, monitors outside the bathroom, but Jim's creativity, as I said before, he's a mastermind at scheduling. He was able to, move some pieces and make this puzzle all come together. So hopefully the kids will start seeing that, they're being heard and it will work as well as morning entry.
So the solution, because I know New Britain gets a little bit less per pupil funding than other very neighboring districts, really had to be a scheduling fix. It really couldn't have been a hire.
Correct.
Yeah, we're always at.
Not everybody has a Jim Brasile to be able to solve that problem. No, we're
so true.
Yeah. I will say, though, to answer Meg's past question, when I was a student in New Britain High School, I never asked for a bathroom pass. I didn't go once to the bathroom. I wasn't like super scared to go in there, but it was just like I wouldn't even bother. Like I didn't know what was going on in there. And but kids now walk around with water bottles. We were all dehydrated back in the 90s. Kids got to go to the bathroom now. I would go on occasion when I was in the locker room changing for gym. There were bathrooms, so I'd go down there, but I would never actually ask for a pass to go during class.
I'm going to ask one more question about the whole climate and culture initiative that you started, but what are some of the skills that you honed back through this experience that you are applying to these new situations, like the bathrooms? Or what's something that happened through that experience that really supported you to be like, yeah, we got this. A new climate culture issue, we've got it. We can handle it.
I can go quick and I'll go first. I think that one of the big things is that never to think that all hope is lost. And I think that there were probably a lot of teachers, like the idea of having, even though it seems so simple now, the idea of having staffed specific locations for students to just stay in the morning had never even occurred to me as a possibility. And now with this whole bathroom thing, that problem was beyond my comprehension, how he could ever fix that. I'm just happy to have, Damon Pierce and Jim and Meg, that they could, figure out new ways, and that it's never going to be maybe right off the bat, but there's definitely something that could be done no matter how big the problem seems.
Yeah. We got this. We have the capacity between all of us, our different perspectives. We can solve the problem.
That's a nice way to say it, Chris, because I've been thinking to myself, like, as I've been thinking about the morning entry, as I'm thinking about this new study halls and covering the labs, I am good at like doing the logistics, figuring out the ways to make it happen once you tell me the idea. But like you, I didn't come up with those ideas myself, and I wouldn't really have thought of those. So we do really need to lean on the team. And I think that's one of the big things that we do, and hopefully we do it pretty well, is lean on each other to, like, we have some idea makers, we have some people in logistics, we have some, people who are able to manage the relationships and make that work. So I think that's a big part of it. For my individual, the question was like, what skills did we use that we continue to use? It's just like setting up those systems. If I ever have something that I'm working on, if the question is like throwing it together and doing it in half the time, or developing the whole system for how it's going to work and then making it happen, it's definitely developed the system, because it saves so much time in the long run for any of these things. Unfortunately, it turns into now we got a whole bunch of systems because we have a whole bunch of good things that we're doing. It's definitely, I learned that back then, and we still definitely need to employ that now, is like, take the time to create the whole system, create your process, make sure it's communicated correctly.
Meg, the question was anything that you learned from the process. And
I think just what Jim and Chris shared, just having hope and knowing that, change will happen, but sometimes it takes a little time.
I can't thank you enough because I really am trying to collect all of these stories to tell a bigger story of how awesome public schools are and the people who work in them. So, and you are at the top of my list. So thank you guys.
Yeah, that's a cool project. Very nice.
Thanks for inviting us, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. This
absolutely.
was great.
Thanks for giving me an hour and a half of your afternoon.
Sarah, I can give you a very honest and professional accolade because you have been one of the best people we've ever worked with.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You were the reason that we got such a diverse group of people together to start this program and a big reason why it was so successful. So thank you so much for helping us and really you're honest and you're empathetic. You weren't judgmental to our situations and you were very helpful. So thank you.
Gosh, you guys, that's so nice. I might quote you on that.
Please. We'll talk again soon. I look forward to seeing the next email from you.
Okay.
All right.
Cheers, you guys.
Bye, you guys.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening. I hope today's episode leaves you feeling empowered and optimistic about solving even the toughest of challenges with your own team. If you enjoyed the episode, help us grow and reach more listeners by 1, sharing the podcast, 2, subscribing so you never miss an episode, and 3, leaving us a review. I promise to read and respond to everyone. Your support means so much. Thanks again, and see you next time on the Efficacious Educator Podcast. The Efficacious Educator Podcast is written, produced, recorded, and edited by the Efficacious Educator, LLC. Unauthorized use of this content without permission is prohibited.